Hey arty friends, so I am currently recording a video on these PSA watercolors from Wish, and a while back I did a PSA about quality watercolors, so I thought I would do a PSA about cheap watercolors. I don't have a bunch of swatches to demonstrate what I'm talking about, so you guys will have to forgive me, but I am currently in the middle of demonstrating how cheap watercolors work fairly well if you start really light and you only want 3 layers of color, but they don't work nearly as well if you work in multiple layers developing tones. As you guys can see here, everything is almost the same saturation, almost the same tone. I hit the saturation point on these watercolors really early, a problem I don't have with higher quality watercolors. There is not a whole lot of depth of color. This is a dark purple, which is this dark purple over here. Of course it looks dark and saturated in the pan. Part of that is also because it's in shadow, and it looks dark and saturated when it's wet. It looks really rich when it's wet, but once it's had a chance to dry, it sort of evens out, I guess you would say, and that's due to the addition of optical brighteners, things like chalk or shellfish powder, so calcium, I don't want to say calcium bicarbonate because that's not it, but powdered calcium, that make the colors look really intense and bright in their half pans and sort of muted and unimpressive when you paint with them. Another thing about cheap watercolors is they tend to go a lot faster. They develop divots and they get worn down a lot faster, use them up a lot faster than more expensive watercolors, because you have to use more of the color in order to get the saturation you want, and there's a tendency for them to just glob onto your brush. They also have a tendency to be opaque because of those optical brighteners, and they are not going to last nearly as long. They tend to not be archival, and sometimes they'll use dyes instead of pigments. So I cannot tell you what to do with the budget you have for your watercolors, but I can warn you that some things look too good to be true, and it's always helpful to watch reviews, sometimes several reviews, or read reviews, and also check out that person's art, see how they do watercolor. Something that would work in this style, which this piece does not work in this style, doesn't always work in the lighter pastel watercolors, and the pastel watercolor style tends to work better with these inexpensive watercolors than something that is a little bit more layered, has more depth, and is going for more contrast. When you're painting with these cheap watercolors, you're basically saying goodbye to contrast. So I hope this little PSA was helpful for you guys, and I hope you guys will keep an eye on my channel. I do plan on doing a big cheap watercolor swatch off the same way I did a high quality watercolor swatch off on 2 different types of paper to give you guys a little bit more information and a little bit more context. So I'll see you guys again really soon. Bye guys!